Good morning. This is Vaughan Smith at westcoatbellpottery.ca on the south shore of Nova Scotia in Canada. I'm going to do a relaxing video today of just throwing some compost canisters for the kitchen countertop. It's basically a very large canister with a fitting lid. If you want to go to sleep to a video, this will be the one to do it to. I'm going to do 4 of them and I'll let it run and you can turn it off as soon as you want, basically, because it'll be 4 repetitive jars and lids. Basically, after all those glazing videos, I thought I'd do something relaxing for myself too. All right, okay, and I do have the kiln going with that other firing in with the next trial on those glaze tests. Let's get this picture sorted out. There we go, I think that should work. All right, so I'm throwing with about 5.5 pounds of clay. It's got to be a large canister basically. I have one in my own kitchen and it takes me about 5-6 days to fill it up with potato peelings and all the leftover vegetables. I never put meat in it for my compost. Anyway, so 5.5 pounds of clay. Make sure it's down hard before you put any pressure on sideways, and then center it. And centering is a matter of putting pressure on from the side and the top and trying to get that pressure equal so the piece will stop wobbling. Here's a good tip for you. What I have, I can get it centered, but it's a lot easier if you position your wheel so your elbow is sticking into a wall, and I'll knock it off center a bit. So basically, if you put it off center, you just do that and it will go instantly into center. So you need a solid wall right next to your arm, just the right distance for what pieces you're going to throw. So I move my wheel backwards and forwards. If I'm throwing mugs, I don't need to do this for mugs, but if I'm doing bigger or smaller, medium to large pieces of clay, it's a good big help to have a heavy wall next to you. So, okay. Now, if you think your clay is a bit uneven, like it's not been wedged very well, it's a good idea to do what's called coning. And this is also called wedging on the wheel. If people don't know what that is, it means coning 2 or 3 times, pushing down again. And any air bubbles or unevenness in the clay will actually be forced to the surface and will pop right out. So coning, pushing down, getting some water again. Let go slowly whenever you do that. This bat is knocking, as you can hear, but that's not too bad. It'll stop after a while. Now, compost box should be fairly wide because you want to be able to pour potato peelings in there from a cutting board, whatever, without them going around it. So let's see, I'll use a sponge just to give myself a little extra liquid. Push down. Also, don't make it thin at the bottom. I know that's always the case because you won't want to drop something in there. Like some people might decide to use it as a utensil jar. When I sell things, people change what I'm designing it for. So you don't know if somebody might buy this and not use it as a compost box, but use it as a utensil jar and not even use the lid. So I don't want to make a base that's thin, otherwise somebody might drop a knife in there and it might go right through the bottom. Now the sponge on the inside has allowed me to keep it wet for a long time on the inside. A lot of people don't like to throw with sponges. If they have big flat fat fingers, then basically it's an advantage being a potter. I've always noticed that too. Some potters have really flat fingers. No, I'm not lucky enough to have flat fingers. So a sponge at the end of my fingers sometimes helps. So you just place it between you and the clay and just throw as normal. Alright. Then first lift. So basically that is fairly wide now. And I just opened it up, flat bottom. I've flattened it with a sponge a bit. Now I'm going to do a lift. Fairly quick lift. I've got a variety of those back grippers that they sell. They're like pieces of rubber. So if I wanted to stop that knocking or torque completely, I would just put one of those underneath. But it's never bothered me too much anyway. Fingertips right at the bottom, and on the outside I'm pushing a little harder than I am doing on the inside. And if it ever dries out on the way up, it means you're probably not pulling fast enough. Now my thumb's going to pull the rim in there, because you should be able to get from the bottom to the top, trying not to duplicate a rotation in the same level, because that's when it starts to dry out. Ooh, we're going off the window. I'm going to have to lift it up a bit. I've got this iPad right next to the wheel, so I guess you got a really good shot. That means it's not quite going to get the top of it. There we go, that might be better. Ooh. Trying not to get clay on the iPad too. Yeah, I'm just going to have to take it back a bit. There we go. Get a little distance from the camera there. I'm right by the window, so I can't go too far back. Okay, once again, fingertips press in and go fairly hard, but more pressure on the outside. And the pull, it's rotating once, and I'm going up one level, just the width of my fingers for each rotation. I'm getting to the rim edge, so now I'm going to put my finger right on the rim to compress a little bit. I don't want a thin rim on this. Am I still on the picture? Yep, I am. Now I'm going to take the water out, because I always do a final pull, which is a fairly dry pull. So there's nothing left. Now I'm going to use the sponge and start at the bottom and pull it all the way up, and the sponge has still got some water in it, but it'll make the wall even all the way up from the bottom to the top. There we go. And now I'm going to put my foot on. This rib has a nice angled point. It's rounded off a little bit, so I place it underneath. My finger comes in contact just before the rib does with the clay, so it compresses just a touch, but I've got a nice little gouge underneath. And then I come with the rib above that, and there's my foot. So I don't need to trim this piece. Basically, just when I trim these pieces, I'm usually just knocking off the little bit of rough stuff anyway. I'm not really trying to thin things too much, because I try to throw them the right thickness from the word go. Okay, so basically we know it's even on the inside because I dragged the sponge up. But I'm using the rib and I'm going to belly it, so more pressure with the inside at this point. Get as much volume as we can from this piece. Rib's full of moisture now, so I've got to get that off. Do the same again. Continue that even belly. You can work on the belly to kind of make that even. So you get the curve, sort of a feeling of sort of strength in the piece, so it doesn't look like it's sagging. You know, when your pot's beginning to collapse, that's what we call sagging, and it's a weak form. So this belly is the outer part is a little higher up than the midway point, and I've always felt like that gives it a feeling of strength. You know, think of it like a beer belly on a guy, or a great big muscly Mr. Atlas guy. But where all the body weight is in the upper chest rather than in the belly. And at the top, going to use that point of the rib just to kind of push right above that. Now I'm trying to do the opening, so basically, like I said, we don't want to have this potato peelings falling around the pot. You can turn the rib round and also get a sharper point on the underside of that rim there too. The glaze might look nice as it gets darker in that section. Now the inside, I already took all the moisture out and ran the sponge up, so it's totally smooth on the inside. This is this date today, Friday the 4th of December. Isn't that amazing? COVID since mid-March. We're almost at the end of the year. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's a fairly decent sized pot. It will shrink obviously, but you want to make sure it's just, I like to have it so I only have to empty it once a week in the kitchen. Then if you've seen these are really nice lid master tools that give you the size of the lid by one end and measuring inside the pot, and then the other end will give you the outer edge. So if I measure from side to side, that's my size of the lid, goes right inside there. Let's lift this off. These are the bats that have the pinholes. You can't see them, they're a little bit tricky, but after a while you get used to using them. This is a Shimpo, no, this is the Brent CXC wheel. Now I'm not rounding this off because it's a small piece, but I'm just going to make it a little rounded on the bottom area there. Alright, same again, center the clay. This piece is about 1.25 pounds. It's a fairly big lid that I've got there. I'm also going to put a pretty big knob on it too, so that people can grip it easily. As a young potter, I would never have even thought about it, but as an older potter now, I know that we've got to think about older people, and even, you know, middle-aged people get arthritis. It's more and more common, and so gripping a lid becomes more and more important. So think of that as a functional thing. You need a fairly decent sized knob on something. So I'm going to put my fingers down here and leave that width in the center for the knob. That's a large piece of clay there. And then compress it, and we can decorate that little area in a minute, but it's just enough to identify it for now. Okay, so now I'm just going to pull out a little bit to get my width of the lid. And I do it by eye at first, and then I measure afterwards. Take a look at it. I've got a lot of width underneath that lid there, so I can take that up a little higher. I'm just going to compress the clay a little bit here. Often if you run back from the outer edge to the center, you can compress the clay in the opposite way to when you opened it up, and it will give it a little bit more strength because you're pushing the molecules back into position rather than them all pointing in the same direction, like, because clay molecules are like platelets, like blood platelets basically. Alright, so we think we got that enough. Now this is all I do. My little finger goes upside down, I push underneath, and it pushes a wall up, and then my middle finger, my other hand, just goes across the top. And I'm guessing at this point at the size of this lid, remember I haven't measured. And this is the first one, I don't usually get it too accurate the first time. And this finger was pushing down a little bit there too. to make sure I've got that nice wall. Now I know I'll be in 1/2 inch of this, but it's probably going to need some adjustments. Okay, so we took that out. If you want to make your glaze fit in, you know, give it a nice bit of interest, you can run a little spiral back into the center there to leave it visible. And that means the glaze will set up. And then you can also do it with the point of your rib. You can dig it into the clay and simply make another spiral out on that top there. That will catch the actual glaze too, which will make it attractive. And you can also later on, if you don't want to do the spiral, a lot of potters don't like the old spiral, but it's a very quick way of just giving something a little eye catcher. Take the water off. Alright, so we have a lid, but we don't know if it fits. Okay, so the way we know is these two ends with a hole in the jar. So I place them inside, and I can open the lid up just to touch. It fits, but it'll be a little loose, I think. So what I do is I'm just going to push this out just a tiny bit and lift on the outer bit of the flange. And push down a bit more to flatten it. Now we look again. Oh, I didn't change it that much. It went out a bit more. Maybe I can use this lid for a different pot, but I can make it go a bit further anyway. There we go. Like I said, I'll probably be within 1/2 inch, but there we go. Now that one's perfect. You need a little extra thickness for the wall of the pot, remember, so when you do this you want to make sure it's not too much. So I could just push back just a touch. There we go. And that lid should be a good tight fit now. We don't want the ants to be able to get in this jar either. If you have an old house which is got leaky foundation, if you've got honey in your kitchen, they'll find the honey. Just going to get rid of those marks from the lid master. Okay, and there's the lid. Oh, there you go. See how it hangs out underside? And that will fit right on top of the hole of the jar. Okie dokie. That's basically the video. Now I'm going to let it run a bit longer just for you to see, but I won't talk during this bit. I'm just going to basically let you watch so you get the complete idea of doing one of these. I will mention again though that it is 5.5 pounds of clay for the jar and about 1.25 pounds for the actual lid. I will mention, if I didn't do it last time, that it's a good idea to leave a thick rim, because you can also make a lid fit better just by trimming a little outside of the rim later on. Okay, that's that one. Now I need to measure it. What did I do with my calipers? Right there. Oh, this is about a 1/4 inch or maybe less than 1/2 centimeter bigger than the last one. So I'm just widening it a touch. One and 1/4 pounds. I know the last one was a little small at the beginning, so I'm trying to make this bigger right from the start. Although it's easier to make them wider, it's almost impossible to make them smaller. Perfect. That's why I said the more when you first throw something, it's not quite, never as good the first time. You have to make it once to see what you have to do. And if I was really good, I would actually measure the pot and put a little caliper thing, like a piece of wood, just to show where I had to throw it to. But I've never been that crazy. Oh, I should show you that lid again, because I did a slightly different knob on that. The knob has a little under groove in there. There you go. This one's a touch smaller. I'll just do the lid and then I'm going to finish the video. Make a bigger knob on this one because I've got a smaller width of lid, so I'll have a bit of extra clay. May as well use it in the knob. Let's have a look at this one. That's a good fit, but it could go a little bit tighter. I'm just going to push out just a fraction. That's good, yeah. All right. Oh, I should have put the spiral in, shouldn't I? I didn't do it to the other one either. That'll just catch the glaze a little. There you go. Clean your wheel bat up when you take a pot off. It helps later on. I always have a little bit left on the pieces. I actually airbrush slips a lot of time when I'm working, so I'll get a slip residue on my pieces, on the bats themselves, that I have to clean off. And I always do it on the wheel rather than at the sink. All right, so let's see. This is a long time again. So, okay. So Vaughan Smith, westcottbellpottery.ca, on the south shore of Nova Scotia. That's 3 canisters. I got one more to go, but you know, you're asleep by now. I plan on a couple of videos later, big serving dishes sometime, maybe next week, for casseroles and stuff. But anyway, stay safe, wear a mask, and social distance, just so we don't spread this thing any further than it has to go. All right, thanks very much. Bye-bye.